more than 4,000 guests expected inside the claw structure, and so the unprecedented spectacle expected to make use of historic White House spaces through which fighters will make their entrances.
I guess entertainment's entertainment, but I don't know if those are the most important issues that our country needs to focus on right now.
The made-for-TV pageantry in partnership with UFC, coming as the president's political support from its core audience, young men, has slipped.
I'm a huge MMA fan, so I'm just here for the sport. So, but it's his birthday when he's in the area, so great for him.
The UFC says it's picking up the $60 million price tag for tonight's festivities, and despite possible storms in the forecast, the White House says the events are going on, rain or shine. Ed?
Olivia Gazis outside the White House on the ellipse. Thank you. Today, the president also called out Israel for once again attacking what it says are Hezbollah targets in southern suburbs of Beirut, Lebanon. In separate interviews, he used the F word to convey frustrations with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for launching the strikes just as the U.S. is on the verge of its deal with Iran. CBS's Imtiaz Tayeb is in Tel Aviv tonight with more. Imtiaz?
Ed, good evening to you. Well, this really could prove to be the most significant diplomatic breakthrough in the Middle East in years. The United States and Iran have agreed to end months of conflict, creating a pathway towards a broader agreement over Iran's nuclear program. Now, the deal calls for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important energy and shipping routes, while the United States is expected to ease some economic pressure on Tehran and extend a ceasefire that has largely held since April. But despite the breakthrough, major questions remain. The agreement is only a framework, with negotiators now facing a 60-day window to tackle the far more difficult issues, including Iran's nuclear activities, sanctions relief, and the future of the Iran-backed groups across the region. And even as the deal was being finalized, Israeli strikes in Lebanon underscored just how fragile this moment remains. Tonight, though, both sides will no doubt be claiming a diplomatic deal. This agreement can survive the mistrust and violence that have derailed previous attempts at peace. Ed.
And Imtiaz, do we know who exactly the United States is negotiating with on this agreement?
Well, notably, the U.S. isn't negotiating directly with Iran's new supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, who hasn't been seen or heard from since being appointed. Now, the talks have been conducted through senior Iranian officials with Pakistan and more recently Qatar helping to mediate. Ultimately, though, any agreement still requires Mujtaba's blessing. So while a memorandum may be signed, the real question is whether the Iranian leadership will remain committed once the harder negotiations begin. Ed.
Imtiaz Tayeb in Tel Aviv, thank you. Tonight, President Trump is set to depart the nation's capital, traveling overnight for a diplomatic summit in France. CBS's Nancy Cortez is there with more on what's ahead. Nancy?
And the G7 summit is an opportunity for the leaders of the world's 7 largest democracies to gather every year to discuss issues of importance to all of them. And this year, the agenda is especially crowded because in addition to some of the standard topics like China and Ukraine and AI, this is going to be President Trump's first face-to-face meeting with European allies since the start of the Iran war months ago. And that war has taken a toll on the European economy, even perhaps more so than on the U.S. economy, because Europe gets so much of its oil from the Middle East. So these leaders of France and the UK and Germany and others want to discuss plans to get the Strait of Hormuz reopened as quickly as possible. And they may want to talk about the additional 10% tariffs that Trump has proposed placing on trading partners as well. And they're going to want to talk about all of this in a way that doesn't irritate President Trump, who has a history of clashing with this group of leaders when they are all together. On the eve of this summit, thousands of protesters gathered here along the banks of Lake Geneva to make their voices heard on any number of topics. Trump himself.
He's not only trying to bring forth a far-right movement in the United States, he's trying to do the same here in Europe.
This G7 summit was originally supposed to begin this weekend, but the organizers agreed to push it back a day in order to accommodate President Trump's birthday celebration in the U.S. on the White House lawn. Ed?
Nancy Corday. scene of a deadly crash in Missouri. Wreckage of the aircraft lies near the airport in the town of Butler, roughly 65 miles south of Kansas City. On board the aircraft, 11 skydivers and their pilot all died. It happened just after takeoff to the horror of witnesses on the ground.
You know, our hearts go out to them. There's nothing we really can say to make it better. We just pray for them and their loved ones and their friends and their family.
The sheriff says the plane didn't get more than 100 feet off the ground before crashing. To the weather, tonight nearly 80 million Americans are under risk for severe storms. Look at this from Bristol. A storm chaser this weekend captured what they cloud-to-ground lightning barrage as thunderstorms swept the area. Let's check in with meteorologist Andrew Kozak for the latest. Andrew?
Good evening, Ed. Still keeping a close eye on the south, but tonight, especially in the Northeast and the Great Lakes, look at all the radar, the colors lighting up places like Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and new tonight, not just thunderstorm watches for millions of people of tornado warning. Should die down as we progress throughout the night, but then it becomes more of a strict and special attention to that. The create a lot. State New York and Philadelphia. About 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, Eastern Long Island, wee hours of the morning for places like Boston up to Maine. So we're dealing with that now, but the is we start Monday off cooler, drier, and much better. Highlighted those places that have the World Cup games tomorrow, like Atlanta at 83. Much better weather. A few thunderstorms in LA. Ed?
Kozak, thank you. Today, the New York Knicks brought home the NBA's Larry O'Brien Championship Trophy, their first.